Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We are very excited to represent the boutique and independent industry. You already heard each of our names and titles, but I'd love it just for Gregory and Chris to just talk a little bit about your background and what your role is today.
Sure. I work for a small family real estate firm in West Hollywood, California, and we have 3 properties. One of them is an independent property, is the leading hotel of the world, very proudly, and we have 2 other properties that are soft brands within a larger brand.
Okay.
Perfect. I'm Chris Walker, Senior Vice President and Chief Commercial Officer of the Leading Hotels of the World. Leading Hotels is a 97-year young company that is all about empowering independent luxury hotels to be commercially successful so that they can make the choice to stay independent. So we're really excited to work with amazing hoteliers like Gregory and all the others that we have a chance to work with in the portfolio.
Okay, great. I guess we'll get into it. So I'll start with you, Gregory. Sure. Can you tell the audience a little bit about how you decide between going purely independent versus going with a brand? And maybe in your response, you can talk a little bit about Malibu Beach Inn. Sure. And did you ever consider a brand for that?
Yeah, sure. So I think a lot of it has to do with, what your capacity is as an operator, as an owner. And if you have the capacity to be able to operate it independently, I highly recommend it. I think when I started with, we actually, was a new venture for Manny Brothers 10 years ago. They're a real estate firm and primarily office real estate in Southern California. And the owners came to me 10 years ago and said, we'd like you to start a hospitality company for us. I asked them if they'd ever been in the hospitality business. They said no. I said, this is a terrible idea. You should not do this. But here we are 10 years later. And I think when we started, I had my vision was everything would be independently owned and operated. But then you get an opportunity to acquire an asset, for instance, that has a management agreement that's already on it that doesn't make financial sense for you to break, or you purchase a property like we did in the most remote place, in the islands of Hawaii, and it's hard to get to, and that's really, and we actually converted that property from an independent to a soft brand. So I think it's different for each asset and each property, and each owner has to make their own decision. We didn't really consider Malibu Beach Inn anything other than a leading hotel. I've got over 20 years background with leading. I really believe in that affiliation, and I really felt like it was would be a unique fit. I wasn't sure leading was going to feel that way. Fortunately, they did, and we've been now, obviously with that property for almost 10 years, with leading very happily.
Wonderful. And Chris, can you tell us a little bit about, from your purview, what are the benefits of being independent in today's hospitality landscape?
Yeah, I think it's an exciting space to be in. I've been really pleased over the course of this conference to hear how many people are talking about independent and boutique hotels and the trends that are really supporting that space. I would say across all different participants in the hospitality landscape, I think there's benefits of independence. I think, as Greg was talking about, if you're an operator that is passionate and really committed and wants to bring your creativity to how you create hospitality for your guests, independence really allows for that in a way that some other options don't. I would say if you're in sales and marketing and you want to get out there and promote and get the word out about something amazing that has a great story and a unique point of view and a unique perspective, independence, I think, really allow for that a lot more than other options. And I would say if you're an owner and an asset manager, there are benefits to not having that encumbrance. As Greg talked about, you pick up an asset that has a management agreement or a franchise agreement in place that maybe if you're an owner, you don't want that encumbrance. Maybe you don't want to be dictated when and how and what you do on a PIP. You want to have, it's not suggesting everybody shouldn't reinvest in their properties, but maybe you want to do it on your own time scale and in your own places and in ways that really matter to your customers. So I think no matter who you are in the hospitality space, I think independence just gives you a lot more freedom and flexibility to be creative and to really, bring the passion to it. And I think most of us got into this business because we are hospitable by nature. And I think that independents really allow you to pull that through in your property.
Yeah, maybe depending on your personality. I always say, it's so great because you actually get to make every decision. So that may scare some people and they don't want anything to do with it, but it's actually pretty exciting to be part of creating something.
Yeah, I agree. It might not be for everybody, but if
Right.
you're that kind of person, it's really motivating.
Right. Chris, we'll stay with you for a minute. We were wondering if you see meaningful differences in the performance and competitiveness of your leading properties in the US versus, the rest of the globe. Is it more challenging to be independent here in the US?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, independent hotel keeping has a little bit more history and heritage in Europe than it does in the United States. I would say in Europe, we have a lot of assets that are family owned and operated for 6, 7, 8 generations. I personally think it would be a little easier to inherit a hotel than to build it from scratch. And so I think you do have that benefit in Europe a little bit. But I would say, for those hotels that do put the time and effort in to be independent in the US, we see the same results as we see in Europe. So we're seeing 20% growth globally, and that's the same for our US properties as it is for those European properties. So certainly we don't have as many hotels in our portfolio in North America, but those that we do have perform just as well. And the Lowell in New York is regularly recognized as one of the top hotels in New York. And so you don't have to be with a brand to achieve that in the US. That's a great little family-owned independent hotel that's exceptional. Similar to our hotels in Paris that are often the top hotels there. So I think people think of it more in Europe and it's more top of mind, but I don't think there's anything holding you back in the US. I think you can be just as successful here as anywhere else.
That's great to hear. Great to hear. This is a question for both of you, but I'll start with Gregory. How can independents make smarter commercial decisions in the increasingly competitive environment? Is there a certain short list of things you think are critical? What really needs to be in the business plans?
Yeah, I think first you have to be independent, you really need to own and utilize your data. It's really the most piece that can differentiate you from your competitors or from chains or brands. Understand that data and also build a database that you're actually going to use that can track things like preferences and stay patterns. And the one thing you have, and again, I'm speaking, I have hotels on both sides. So one thing I think independents have such a unique advantage over chains or some brands is that you're able to as Chris was mentioning, you really can do what you want to do with your guest, and you're not constrained by some of the things. For instance, let's say if you had a property that was in a brand portfolio, and you have a need period, and you were trying to push a package or promotion or whatever it might be, and the brand says, sure, we'll absolutely do that for you, but they're going to put it, where are they going to put it? They're going to put it below their brand, right? The brand offers are always going to come first. That's just the way it works. And as an independent, you're able to make those decisions, as you want and affect your business. And I think those would be the most important things.
And Chris, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I agree. I think as an independent, you can really have a point of view on who you want your customer to be and how you are uniquely positioned to deliver an experience for that customer. And so, for so many presentations here at this conference, people have been making great points about that. John Berg from Urban Villages, who has the Populous Hotel, they don't just pay lip service to sustainability. It's woven into how they build the hotel, how they operate the hotel, the stories they tell, what they give back. Their employees are engaged in that giving back. So every employee is committed to sustainability. So it's not just lip service, it's through and through. Walter Eisenberg from Sage Hospitality was up on stage. They've done some incredible adaptive reuse here in Denver. How many people are staying at an independent hotel here for this conference?
Anyone? A few?
All right, there's a few of us. the Hotel Teatro. It's 3 blocks away. They really lean into being the former headquarters of the Denver Tramway Company. The restaurant's called the Nickel because it used to cost a nickel to ride on the tramway. And there's a real story to that hotel, and it's got real character. And I think that can be through everything that you do with the hotel. So, that's part of the experience that you deliver. It's part of the story you tell, and that's got to be part of your business plan. Selfishly and self-servingly, I would also say, being independent doesn't mean you have to do it entirely alone. We are an organization that is, our mission is to empower you to be independent, but still be successful. And so, with 420 hotels, we can bring a scale to your operation that maybe you can't have on your own, but we don't tell you how to run your hotel or what your brand standards are. That's up to you as your unique offering. But, we can have a loyalty program that's global. We can have a partnership with American Express, Platinum, and Centurion cards because we've got that scale. So you can maintain a lot of your independence, but partner with organizations like Leading, organizations like Curator that are there to support you. So independent doesn't mean you have to do it all yourself, but it means that you can find some good partners that can support you and help you scale up what you're doing as well.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about the current travelers these days. We'll start with you, Chris. What changes in traveler expectations should hotels be thinking about? How are you engaging, if you are, with all the different demographics, the boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z? Do you take that into account with what you do?
Yeah, I mean, as a almost 100-year-old company with a lot of, grand dam hotels in Europe that are kind of the backbone of our portfolio, I think everybody thinks of Leading as really for boomers. And actually, more than 80% of our customers are, on that young. I love that the category is under 60, so it allows me to feel young,
Just
which is
made it.
great.
We're still young.
Yeah, we sneak right under there. So I'm glad that, it's really not boomers, I guess, is what they're saying. But McKinsey is saying, that's the fastest growing segment. It's actually the millennials and the Gen Zs that are the fastest growing in there. So it's the younger end of that, that below 60 that's really driving it. And, we spent a lot of time listening to those customers. We had, consultants in, we've had different panelists in when we bring our sales and marketing folks together at LHW to hear what those trends are. And again, there's a lot of things that I think, are going our way. There's a trust gap in that younger consumer. They don't necessarily trust companies, and they're looking for companies that are really authentic. And I think independent hotels can really capitalize on that. I think if you're really true to your story and your ethos as an independent, you can really build that trust and create an experience. You definitely see those younger travelers are looking for experience, and cookie cutter and box it doesn't check that box for a lot of them. And so we see our fastest growth is in those 30-somethings, which sadly I couldn't afford luxury hotels when I was 30, but I'm excited that there's a bunch of 30-somethings out there that do stay at our hotels, and they're our fastest growing segment. So it's great for us.
And Gregory, anything?
Yeah, absolutely. It's perfect because we didn't even really talk about this, but it's funny because I thought I was thinking about and it's an overused term, but the cookie cutter deal, that there's still going to be always going to be a place for those types of properties. But I think about this a lot because Chris and I are both Generation X, which we learned a lot from our parents who were boomers, right? And our parents traveled a certain way and had certain levels of expectations, and whether we wanted to or not, it was imprinted upon us. And we kind of traveled like they did and kind of had their expectations. And I'm sure Chris can remember sitting in meetings where, a lot of smart people, were in the room talking about what, a guest really wants from their experience. Yeah. And the irony of that, of course, is that the only person they didn't ask is the guest. And, the younger generations, the millennials and Gen Z, they're absolutely requiring hotels, well, not just hotels, but hotels, airlines, everybody, they're requiring you to meet them at the place they're at. And I think the way I look at it is that the old generations really adapted to what hospitality was, defined to them. Whereas today, the younger generations are saying, the hotels, you're going to have to adapt to what we think it is.
Right.
Yeah,
Good point.
there's trends there that just weren't a thing back, right?
100%.
Like this high-low luxury where it's like, oh, I'll splurge on my hotel stay, but I'll travel economy class to get there on my
100%.
flight, or things that just that they weren't a thing that are definitely
Absolutely.
emerging now.
And you see it all the time on social media where, somebody very proudly says, look, I'm happy to pay whatever it is, my $20,000 for my handbag, but I'm flying in seat 46F, right? and then I'm going to get to the hotel and I'm going to have, this lovely hotel experience and stay, at a leading hotel of the world, hopefully, or, one of our properties.
Right.
And then they're going to come back and say, okay, but I'm only going to have, the kind of the basics for my restaurant experience. So it's coming, it's finding what they want and making it, applicable for their time.
Yeah, exactly. Chris, this one's for you. We talked about it a little bit, but can you dig maybe a little deeper into how does compelling storytelling translate into real commercial success for these independents and boutiques?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you really have the opportunity to own your own story as an independent hotel, and you can own it throughout every aspect of the experience. So it's from what you deliver on property and how you talk about it, and we really lean into that with our properties and work with them to bring that to life. And it's everything from our hotel, the Hutton in Nashville, has a soundstage and recording studio in it.
I've been there. We had an amazing Independent Lodging Congress event in that space.
Awesome.
Yes.
And they bring acts in there and it's great. And that, no branded hotel is going to think that that's a good idea, but it creates an atmosphere there that, Nashville is such a music city, they don't pay lip service to it, like they own it and they deliver on it. And, the Hay Adams, where their tagline is the only thing overlooked is the White House. I mean, like, come on, you're located in that location. You've got to lean into that. You've got to, of course, you should call your bar off the record. And of course, you should, talk about the stories, what happened in that room and lean into that. And, I think that there's a really unique way that independents can bring that to life. And I also, in our age of AI being what's driving search, and GEO being something that is increasingly how consumers find your hotels, storytelling is what they're looking for. They're looking for, like, where is the original content about this hotel coming from? And so if you do a good job of telling your story, you can actually really bring guests into your world, like even in the planning stage, right? Early on, you have that opportunity that I don't think we had in the past. And I don't think, and I think independent hotels can capitalize on more than others potentially.
Yeah, for sure. So this is going to be our last question as we wrap up things. So for both of you, maybe Gregory, you can go first. Where do you see the independent luxury segment headed maybe in the next, 5 to 10 years? And can we still compete and even thrive in an increasingly crowded branded market?
So the short answer is yes. And I think what I would say, maybe I'll get over the skis a little bit here. I actually believe that independent hotels, particularly independent luxury hotels, I think we're on the precipice of it being, and I don't know whether it's 5 years from now or sooner or later, but I really think it's actually going to be one of the biggest growing segments. And I think because people want, again, we talked about the younger generations are really what's driving this. They want authenticity. They want something that is different than their parents had. And they want, hotels to meet them at the place they are at and where they want to go. And if that wasn't the case, there wouldn't be so many soft brands, that are they want to get in on too. They want to mimic that feeling. And, I say that with pride and confidence because I've got 2 of those, myself. But those were decisions made very specifically because I believe, holistically, that independent properties, or certainly independent feeling properties, are going to be the biggest thing that's going to happen in the next, 5 to 10 years. I really believe it.
Right.
I mean, thanks, Gregory. I mean, I leaning right into where we're going. I mean, it's all we do is independent luxury hotels, and We have more inquiries than ever of hotels that are wanting to join leading. We've had branded hotels convert to independent to join leading. I absolutely think Ozan, who was on stage a couple of panels ago or sessions ago, was talking about like luxury really being where there's so much runway and so much growth. We absolutely see that. The luxury space is outperforming most other chain scale right now, and the independents, even within that luxury space, are outperforming the branded options. So I absolutely think that there's a ton of runway, and I think it's all of the trends of what consumers are looking for and how they're finding things and what they want when they have a hotel experience. I think all of that plays into our hands. So we're really bullish on the future, which is a nice place to be.
Love it. Indie power, go indie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I thought we were going to be like we were talking earlier. I thought we were going to be a little island of independence in a sea of brand conversations here at this conference, and I've been pleasantly surprised at how many panels are talking about it. So it's not just us who are deep into it, but it's everything from investors and people that are new to the industry, and there's a lot of traction here. So it's really exciting.
Yeah, love it. Well, thank you so much to my insightful panelists.
Thank you.
Just FYI, if you will be continuing the independent perspective discussion later, I'll be in another panel downstairs on the solution stage at 1:45 if you want to join me then. But otherwise, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.